One of Trump's spokespeople and his Secretary of Commerce, Wilbur Ross, really gave us two of the most insane coronavirus predictions ever. I mean, this stuff is special. It is special stupid. So let's take a look at what both of them said. This is back in January and February. But it's not just them. It was also Trump himself. We played the anti-Trump ad for you recently, which had a compilation of everything he was saying in January and February and early March about the coronavirus. And he, utterly clueless, didn't realize what was about to hit him. Even really on the day or the week where everything should have been locked down in the U.S. to make sure we, stop the spread of this thing. Even then, at that late date in early March, he was still, going on and acting like it's not that serious. It's just like the flu. This is no big deal. So anyway, forget Trump's comments. Put them aside because these take the cake.
Looking at the coronavirus and the president saying, look, we're not going to take people in from China right now. I mean, isn't it just a matter of protecting us, our national security really being at stake? And he's sort of the last line of defense there. Or first
That's
line,
right.
I should say.
Absolutely. This president will always put America first. He will always protect American citizens. We will not see diseases like the coronavirus come here. We will not see terrorism come here. And isn't that refreshing when contrasting it with the awful presidency of President Obama?
Kayleigh McEnany, thank you so much. Good to see you tonight.
Thank you.
You could seriously see the Chinese economy come to a halt. And given the large percentage of global growth that China commands, does that actually threaten what you're just saying?
Well, first of all, every American's heart has to go out to the victims of the coronavirus. So I don't want to talk about a victory lap over a very unfortunate, very malignant disease. But the fact is, it does give businesses yet another thing to consider when they go through their review of their supply chain. And top of all the other things, because you had SARS, you have the African swine virus there. Now you have this. It's another risk factor that people need to take into account. So I think it will help to accelerate the return of jobs to North America, some to U.S., probably some to Mexico as well.
Oh, that's a good point, actually.
Maria Bartiromo at the end. That's a good point. It was the exact opposite of a good point. That would be a bad point. Oh, they're amazing. Now, Maria Bartiromo, like almost all of the hosts and commentators on these financial networks, I mean Fox Business and CNBC, they've proven time and time again that they're wrong about everything. And yet, for some reason, they're still taken seriously and they're still on the air. But I remember back to when we had the 2008 subprime mortgage crisis and Great Recession, the market crashed. And I remember very clearly watching the compilations at the time of every single host and every single commentator on that network except one saying, this isn't going to be a market crash. Sour grapes. That's what they would say if you said, I think the market's going to go down. They'd say, sour grapes. They have these little, buzzwords that they use in economic lingo that's supposed to encapsulate an entire argument. Sure, you think the market's going to go down and you provided a reason for that, but I say sour grapes. They love saying bull market and bear market too. It's that economic world where they are incredibly insular and it's insufferable. But every single one of them except a libertarian economist named Peter Schiff was dead wrong. And what they would do on CNBC is invite on the CEOs and the owners of the various corporations. And then they would ask them a question, and then they would just sit back and let them take the floor as if these people have no stake in the game and as if they're just objective experts. They're not. They're not. You're doing the equivalent of inviting on Dick Cheney to talk about morality as if he's the expert on morality. This is the last guy I would go to. He shot a guy in the face. Now, you could say that was an accident. That's the official story. Okay, I guess. But this is what you're doing. You're inviting on people who have a massive conflict of interest, and they're telling you everything is fine. Keep giving us money and investing with us. There will be no market crash. And you could go back and look. Larry Kudlow is one of the people. Jim Cramer, Maria Bartiromo herself, many others. Every single prediction that they made about the 2008 crash, in the month leading up to that crash, they said the exact opposite. So they don't know what they're doing. They're financial experts, and they're dead wrong on one of the most consequential financial events of our lifetimes. It's embarrassing, but you see the same thing happens here. The same thing is happening when it comes to this virus. Oh, I think that this will help American jobs. You think it'll help American jobs? How? Why? Based on what? Now, his argument was, well, it'll make us rethink some of the supply chains, and people will be more likely to set up jobs here at home. And, in theory, I guess that makes some degree of sense, except he didn't factor in that we would get clobbered by the virus and first experience probably a depression, because that's what we're on our way to, a depression. So he didn't factor that in, which seems pretty important to me to factor in. But that leads to the first comment you saw there. One of Trump's spokespeople said, "We will not see diseases like corona come here." How can you say a thing with such confidence? What do you think, that the virus is actually going to respect borders? That it's going to stop right on the U.S. border and say, no, these kinds of people don't have viruses like the rest of the world? I say that, but that actually is something that many people believe. They think other places in the world, let's be serious, they're deeply unsanitary and they're not civilized. And here we're civilized. So, these kinds of viruses, they happen elsewhere. They don't happen here. Well, the Spanish flu begs to differ, because most experts believe that started here in the United States, particularly on a military base in Kansas. Doesn't happen in the civilized world. Well, mad cow started in England. But see, in their minds, well, the only ones that count, like swine flu, that's in Mexico. So it's not us. That's Mexicans. You know what I'm saying? Dirty. You know what I'm saying? And in China, they want to point to this and say, see, it's them and their uncivilized ways. As if the wet markets are uncivilized, but factory farming that we do here is civilized. This is a lot of what goes on, in their minds. We'll never see a virus like this here. So incredibly unprepared. Guys, the reason why these clips are so important, these are leaders of the most powerful government, not just in the world, but in human history. This guy is a leader in the most powerful government in human history. And this is the kind of stuff that he's saying. Again, he's the Secretary of Commerce. They don't know anything. They don't know anything. He's not there based on merit. Trump's spokesperson isn't there based on merit. Nobody's driving the ship. Nobody's steering the ship. I know that you've heard me make this point many times before, but this should really open your eyes to it. When you have the president himself going out there and downplaying a pandemic that's killing people, and then you have other people in his administration saying stuff like this, I mean, that's really, it's going to be good for jobs here. Look, I hope that after the worst of this stuff, that we do move supply chains here. But let me tell you something. I'm not optimistic. I'm not. And the reason why I'm not optimistic is our government is basically run by the corporations. And the corporations bribe the politicians. And all the corporations want to outsource the jobs because they make more profit that way. And if there's one thing I know for sure, it's that profit always takes precedent over human lives. And I don't see anybody fixing this, even though they should. Even though I wish we had supply chains and we had manufacturing here, a lot more manufacturing here. I wish that was the case. If I was in charge, I'd do everything I could to make that the case. But I don't think it's going to happen. And so he's wrong on two fronts. He's wrong because I don't think they're going to do it. Even theoretically, if we didn't get hammered by the virus, I don't think they would do it. But now that we're getting hammered by the virus, I still don't think that they're going to do it. And we're going to lose a tremendous amount of jobs. Think about it. This happened, I think his comment was in, was it February or January? I think his was February. Well, either way, within a couple months, we would have the largest spike in unemployment in history. The previous record for 1 week filing in unemployment was about 680,000 in 1 week during the peak of the Great Recession. Guys, we had 3.1 million 1 week and then 6.6 million the next week. But don't worry, I've been told by Trump spokesperson that we don't get viruses like that here. Oh, man. So anyway, these people have no idea what they're talking about. Excuse me. And they're just propagandists. That's what they are. They go out there. They don't make the case that is. They make the case that they want to make themselves look good. Well, every now and then, reality bursts that bubble in a clear way. And these are two examples of that happening.